Now, for 25 years, I've trained in survival, taught survival, practiced survival, and of course, filmed survival. Essentially, that means that out here, I've had to exist pretty much in the same manner as a legendary creature we've nicknamed Bigfoot. Find food, water, build shelters, stay hidden. So where do I stand on the subject matter? I've seen my share of the unexplained out here. But I'm a skeptic. I need to see it to believe it. And that's what I'm here to do now. Get as close as I can, if that's possible, to the legend known as Sasquatch. This is a remote area in the foothills of Alberta, a northern paradise, crisscrossed with trapping lines, survey lines, and access roads for hunters. I've enlisted the help of a Bigfoot tracker named Todd Standing. He claims to have had multiple interactions with what he believes to be the legendary creature known scientifically as Gigantopithecus. He says they're here. I want him to prove it to me. Thousands of examples of anecdotal references, including confirmed DNA evidence, are not enough for the world to accept their existence. And it's not enough for me either. I need to see one. The way I see it, there's two ways to ask the question. Number one, the easy way. You believe in Bigfoot? That's one way to ask the question. But there's another way to ask that same question. Do you think it's possible that a bipedal ape or a bipedal hominid species could exist around the world in extremely remote locations, or not so remote but thick enough, be responsible for thousands of anecdotal references, from rock throwings to vocalizations to sightings to supposed film footage? Do you think that could exist? That's a different question. That doesn't require belief or faith. It requires answers that are scientifically based. It requires analysis of thousands of examples of evidence based on years of research. It requires an open mind with a skeptic's eye. It requires throwing away preconceived notions and starting at ground zero. Well, for me, this is ground zero of proving or debunking the reality, the myth of the wild man of the forest. Yowie, Yeti, Sasquatch, Skugog, Kushtika, Oma, Bigfoot. I can come out here full of skepticism, that's fine. But if I do believe that if you bring out here the intent that you're up against something, you know. Yeah, you're up against them, you're versus them, then it's the wrong way to approach it. But it's also what I've taught in survival for many years. You know, you have to respect what you're dealing with. You can't fight it. You can't fight it. You can't fight nature. You're not up against nature. You are trying to exist within it. You're trying to survive. And that survival requires respect, humility, and paying attention. And it's no different in the quest for Sasquatch and some sort of connection or experience, whatever that might be. It's going to require the same thing. On July 27th, 2007, while filming a scene from my Survivorman Alaska show, I was distracted by noises in the bush about 100 yards away. If you watch me in these scenes, you can see times when I momentarily look off into the bush on a number of occasions. I was wondering what the sound was. I'm used to sounds in the bush, so I wrote it off as a moose or a bear and carried on shooting the scenes of making a grass bed for my shelter. But eventually, I finished capturing the footage I needed and shut off the cameras. As I walked towards my shelter, I heard a hair-raising, extremely loud sound that could only be described as something like a great ape grunting at me. I've heard many bears grunt, and this was nothing like that. What's more, it repeated it 4 more times very loud while I stood frozen in my step. When I made my move to grab the camera, it took off through the bush and sounded like a freight train breaking trees as it covered many hundreds of yards in seconds. Those sounds have haunted me to this day.
And then I'll do this opposite direction over here.
So we've come to a bit of a high ground, and by virtue of your whoop, we've said, hey, just letting you know we're here, right?
Yeah.
Basically it.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whooping has been referenced hundreds of times throughout the world when it comes to Bigfoot stories. Todd has a theory about markings found throughout this area where two trapping brothers claim to have been scared out of the forest after visual contact with a Bigfoot. They refuse to return. He feels that the systematic and seemingly uniform breaks in trees are signs of communication from Gigantopithecus. They were marking territory for the trappers, part acceptance, part warning. You know, I've broken a lot of branches in my lifetime for doing survival.
Yes.
I've had to bend over a lot of trees, break a lot of trees, cut a lot of trees.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking about this, and I'm just, you know, it would need to be a powerful hand, a grip that snaps and breaks like that. See, I keep trying to excuse this by snow. Saying, well, if there was like 3 feet of snow crystallized on the top and the wind comes in and then snap, right?
Yeah.
But that's not usually how it works.
No, it
you know, the trees can bow over and they might just sort of stay like that. I've seen that over and over again. To be just out in the open like this, you know, and to be snapped like that, yeah, it's like it takes hands. I'm just actually starting to really feel that now, thinking of the different trees I've seen, and being able to, all of a sudden, I feel like I can recognize the difference between a tree that is purposely broken off and put over versus there was lots of snow on the top and it bent over in the wintertime. Well, I'll tell you, it's going to open up my eyes to tree breaks whenever I'm in the wilderness now. Every 100 yards or so, we find tree break after tree break, all pointing in the same direction. All very conspicuous and not feeling like a natural occurrence at all. They're too systematic. Yet I have to be careful not to fall prey to the power of suggestion. I'm not interested in flirting with conspiracy theories. A strong man is not going to do that. I've worked with enough branches and trees to know that ain't going to happen. There's going to be cut marks in it, axe marks, saw marks.
And again, now we're looking at the age of this as well. Don't forget the age.
Yeah, that's not a moose break. And it's not snow either. So again, if it was snow, it would be like that, because I've seen this. It would be March 5th, and it's a big, heavy snowfall. The next day, it goes up to +5. The rain comes in, but then the wind comes in. All those heavy trees just like, whoa, and then you hear snap, crash, bang, but there's always 10, 20, 30, 50, hundreds of them all down, not just one. If the thought is, what is out there for a great ape to survive on? So, well, grizzlies are massive.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
There's lots of them, and they're out there surviving on berries and roots and tubers and grasses and sedges and rodents and fish.
Yes.
Same thing. In 2010, 4 days into a remote region of the Rocky Mountains, less than 12 hours after a freak snowstorm that provided ideal cover, Todd was able to record this footage. It was this imagery that convinced me to utilize his field knowledge in this quest for answers regarding Bigfoot. One thing is for certain, this image is not a blurry image of something running in the distance. It's pretty clear. You can see what I see. So we're left with only one of two possible answers. Either Todd has set this all up, and it's some kind of elaborate hoax, and he's a fraud, and this is a fake, and he's dedicated his whole life to perpetrating this hoax. Or it's not a fake. It's real. So what if this is real? Here, in a powerfully beautiful stretch of the foothills of Alberta, I'm looking for some answers. If you look at and listen to the overwhelming amount of evidence pointing to the existence of Gigantopithecus, it becomes hard to ignore at least the possibility. But like you, I need to see it to believe it. Todd and I have really only been out here for a few hours. We walked most of the afternoon, late afternoon.
deep in, checking out signs and just getting a read on the area. Now we're about to bunk down for the night, and this time, got a sleeping bag, a pad to sleep on. We're gonna sleep out in the open before we can even get settled, before the sun set. And at this point, Todd's convinced that we've got not one, but potentially two, potentially four Sasquatch moving in. And I heard it too. I heard movement in the bush over there. I heard movement in the bush over there. So we've kind of gone back to our normal activity. We're just, you know, if we're being observed, if this is the situation, well, we're just being normal, casual. We'll see how it goes. We got a full moon rising as well.
The night here is just dead calm. You could hear a branch break from a mile away right now. And it's incredibly bright. The moon is full and just, I mean, it's nearly as bright as day out here. Todd has gone into the truck to sleep for the night, and I'm just left out here alone, just to see what else, if any other instances of sound or activity occur. Nothing's happened. It's been just calm all night. There is one incidence of, supposedly, of a man who was actually picked up by Bigfoot in his sleeping bag, carried off. And he spent 2 days with the Bigfoot family and escaped. Something to think about.
Why do so many thousands of trappers, hunters, and conservation officers and the like claim to have seen a Bigfoot? Are they all hoaxers? Are they all delusional? The answer, no matter what it is out here.
Essentially today, what's gonna happen is Todd and I are gonna head off in another direction, do some basic tracking. Any kinds of markings, signs, tracks that are different from what you'd expect. There really is only one way to truly get in and track wilderness creatures of any kind, and that's to get in there. I think the key here is, in my situation, if I'm looking to survive, I look for the same things. And this is a fertile area. It's a really good place for survival. And that's why there's grizzly, moose, cougar, wolves, and according to my friend Mr. Standing, Sasquatch. So we'll keep looking.
Right now, over there, a tree structure that is so significant, I don't think you could have made it without big equipment or ropes.
Really?
As a human being.
All right.
So we'll go have a look. You see it already. We'll go investigate it.
Okay.
I'll show you why
Okay.
it's so significant.
As we approach the structure, it really isn't something you'd notice if you were walking by. There doesn't seem to be anything exceptional about the area. It's not high ground or low ground. There's no nearby creek or specialty food sources. Of all the places, why build a structure here? I need to see if Todd is onto something that few, if any, before him have discovered. Let's give Gigantopithecus the benefit of doubt for now. It would be the closest thing to a human in intelligence that we know. So why wouldn't it make markings and build structures to communicate?
So the first thing you'll notice is the cross section is about 14, 13 feet in the air. All these trees are from a different direction, but some of them, like this one right here, that's thrown upside down. Ever seen a butt of a tree 15, 20 feet in the air like that? And even better than that, if you look at this one over here on the left, it's suspended in the air. Look at the butt, 2 feet off the ground. It doesn't happen naturally. This structure is over 30 years old, probably more like 50. That road that we walked in on is 10 years old. You know how far it was to get in? Can you imagine this being here 30 years ago when there was no road? This tree is bent in. It's actually physically been bent and twisted into this structure.
To play skeptic, I'm trying to say, okay, let's throw the Bigfoot notion out the window.
Okay.
Let's say natural occurrence. And I can't think of a natural occurrence to pull this in. All we really have to work with out here is the weight of the snow and windstorms and rot. The snow couldn't have done this. I know that. Wind wouldn't have done this. I know that. Rot wouldn't have done this. I know that. There is one missing link. There is one last thing that could be left here, and that is, what about a human or humans? Well, I work with trees all the time. I maneuver trees around, I use dead trees, I use live trees, I put them in the position, I make shelters, I make signal fires, I make markings. As a man, I could build this. The issue is the level of difficulty is extreme. There's age to the trees, and that's very, very difficult to fake, and it's aged in position. These trees were, in some cases, possibly dragged and put in place, in other cases, pushed where they stood. And the ones that are pushed where they stood, I take a look at them, and the bottom is old. If this was done even within the last 2 years, it wouldn't look like this, which tells me that this thing has been here for quite some time, and which tells me that the potential for this to have been faked is small. I can get close to the feeling of survival in a place like this, which means I hope to get close to the reality or the non-reality disproving the Sasquatch. And when you come and look at a structure like this, I'm challenged. I'm challenged to disprove this. I'm challenged to say, Todd was in here last week. He had some buddies. They put this all into place. This is pretty powerful.
The whole point of my trip is to attract a Sasquatch. It's said that leaving them gifts does several important things. It lets them know that we're here for them, that we know they're here, and that this is their home. And in recognition of that, we leave them the gift. All of this is done with the intent of building a relationship of trust, and perhaps even getting them excited about our being here. Todd uses apples as the gift, and we place them high enough that deer or elk can't touch them, and anything else should leave obvious tracks.
That's where we're headed. And just keep seeking out signs, walk through the area, be calm and casual in the area, and whatever is here, be it grizzly, be it squirrel, be it Bigfoot, it'll know we're here, and it'll make its own assumptions on how to deal with us, or not.
Like different examples of the same species of wildlife, Sasquatch too have reputations that run the gamut from friendly and even helpful encounters to aggressive behavior that includes grunting, screaming, rock throwing, leg pulls, and even abduction. Todd feels that the Sasquatch in this particular area must have some affinity to humans, since in fact, they seem to have accepted the trappers that were here before, even if their very appearance alone was enough to scare the men away. For me, it always comes down to getting right out there, deep in the danger zone, a place where I'm vulnerable enough for a creature such as this to want to attempt contact.
We're very clearly following a well-worn trail. It's not human trail by any respects. It's going to be entirely wildlife. See, these are the things to follow. We've just got this perfect indentation. That's one of the benefits of tracking in moss. Marks that get made repeatedly stay for a while and give us something to follow here.
We continue to explore the trails as well as the unbroken areas of the forest. Signs of such a controversial subject are going to take a concerted effort to find, and I have to be careful. I don't want to fall prey to the power of suggestion. Todd is one of the best in the field. But what does that even mean? Yet he, like thousands of people before him, swears to have seen the creature clear enough to have no doubt. And I just want to erase my own doubts. The tree breaks are still just a theory. But like it is when I'm out surviving, you have to be out here to get it. Theory though it may be, things do seem to be lining up.
You feel that they point in the direction that is they're okay with you being,
Yes,
but not behind,
that's right.
where I'm standing, basically.
That's right. Don't. You go where the point is.
It's possible that this was a communication of acceptance for the trappers who worked this forest.
Another tree break, and again, the same way. Hannah, big one, too. Will you look at that? See, we have a uniformity here that's actually starting to freak me out a little and get unbelievable, because this is clearly a trap line. He's cut his trail through here. Clearly I can see that, this break, just like all the others, it points in the same direction. It's saying essentially the same thing. Your side is okay. My side's mine. Don't come this way. And this one follows a trap line all the way through.
To enhance the possibility of our success, we continue on the survey and trap lines. And we stop and hoop at specific calculated points. A few minutes after doing our communication hoops, we're stopped in our tracks by an answer.
Whoa. Did you hear that?
I heard that.
That was a Bigfoot.
Right. You said you want to take nothing for granted.
That was a Bigfoot. That was a whoop.
Yeah, I heard it.
Very clearly. That was not a crow.
Crow.
That was over that way.
I heard it.
That was the Bigfoot. That's the first time they've ever whooped back to me, ever here. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Nothing is... Because we'll always be walking, there'll always be something going on, we'll be talking, but you just heard that, didn't you?
No, I heard it clear, very clear.
And
we both went at the very same time.
Yeah.
Let's just take a look at this from my perspective right now. I've come out here with the purpose of skeptically getting closer to a Sasquatch and discovering what that means and what's possible. And I've done that with Bigfoot expert Todd Standing. So we come out here, we hike for hours, areas, we look at tree breaks, we do our whoops. These are characteristics and ways of being that Todd has discovered over years and years of study will be effective for connecting or contacting or having an experience that involves a Sasquatch. Okay, so I'm down with that, and we do it. We get out to the end, we're way up high. I mean, it's high. And we do our whoops, 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes goes by, and we both are stopped suddenly by what can only be described as a return whoop. Now the reality is, hoax, okay, how in the hell did Todd ever get somebody all the way out there and time it for me to land here and then have them whoop back the way I whoop? Obviously just impossible. Was it a bird? Well, potential is always there, but we know our bird calls pretty well. And just one little whoop like that, just like mine, off in the distance and nothing else, that starts to take away the probability that it's a bird. So let's just see what happens. This time let's just do our whoops and sit quietly for 3 or 4 minutes, just to see. And if not, we carry on. Woo! I'm just gonna wait quietly here for a couple minutes and see if we get the same reaction we did last time.
Hoops in the forest will not be enough for me. I need to keep pushing. I need to go in deeper. I need to stay out here overnight and alone. I need to see this for myself. The answer is out there. Sounds I've heard in Alaska, Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia, Washington. Are they all birds and bears? Or something else? As we travel, we find more and more evidence of things that, at the very least, seem very much out of place for the natural forest.
Okay, I just want to show one thing. You know, this whole thing about Todd showing me these structures, it reminded me of something, and it's this. I had spent a lot of time in northern Quebec working with Cree elders, teaching kids wilderness survival methods, and one of the things they showed me was that, in fact, they utilized branches and structures to indicate a lot of different things, especially traveling. They might set up a branch in a certain way, another one would be leaning against it like this, and you come along and you go, oh, okay, well, Jimmy came this way, and he's suggesting that over that way is where the good moose hunting is. Or depending on where it exists on the branch, everything indicated something different. It was a way of telling a story to the person who comes along behind you. So when you think of this, that humans have been doing this for a couple thousand years here in North America. This was their methodology, to take branches, break them, bend them in certain ways, so that people behind them can get a message. It starts to make the tree structures that we're looking at as ways for a Sasquatch species to indicate something, to give a message, a lot more plausible. Is it so far-fetched that an intelligent species, an upright bipedal walking hominid, might do the same thing, and that all these tree structures that Todd is talking about are part of that process? Everything is normal, looks as it should look in a forest. And then you come upon something that just seems abnormal. Like snow, load, or rot didn't do this. So what did? No. I know Todd's gonna tell me, absolutely, this is a tree structure. The base is clearly old, nothing fresh. Start from the bottom, right? So we've got the single tree up the middle, and it's still alive, okay? It has a whole bunch of trees tangled around it, twisted around it. And yet it's younger than the trees that are around it. Tree number 2 gets a snow load and falls like that. Okay, acceptable, all right. Tree number 3 is got to be the suspended one. Okay, if it was snow load, then tree number 3 fell before anything else was there, right? It fell. I don't know how it could have fallen. I mean, it'd have to fall in between the fork branches, and then it would have to be here long enough to rot off the pieces on either side and remain there suspended. And tree number 4 is likely to be the big burnt one that goes across. But it's more like it's shoved up through, right? If that's the case, then why not these other trees? They're just the same size. Why aren't they snapped over? So taking into account the fact that the tree up the center's new, or like young, it's still alive, and then you place all these other branches, I'm just trying to, I can't imagine the complexity it would take for a winter storm. You know, it's March, it's heavy, it's wet, the wind is blowing, to make all this happen. It's like, it'd be like throwing puzzle pieces in the air and they land in the form of the picture they're supposed to make.
Various structures here are less than 2 miles apart. Why are they even here? What purpose do they serve to whomever or whatever made them? And how many more of them are there? The age of the trees and their positioning removes the possibility that Todd set these up as fake. Let's call this Sasquatch CSI. Well, so far, the evidence suggests that something, not humans, not weather, not rot, and not animals, made the structures. But what? Back at base camp, we prepare ourselves for a night that starts out calm, but will end anything but. There's no wind tonight. It's perfect. You could hear a mouse moving if you listen closely. But that's not what we're listening for.
And at the moment, Todd and I are just sitting here by the campfire, kind of telling campfire stories, and sure enough, just heard a good, solid sound. You can tell it's wood sound. Not far, just a few hundred yards from us, likely. I heard that.
Yeah.
Holy sh**. I'm gonna turn the camera so my microphone's pointed in that direction. 3. There's 3. Okay. We're not hearing just one thing. It wasn't just one thing. Now we've heard. What? I don't know. It just sounded like someone hitting one against another. Todd popped his mouth. A couple of small, gentle hoops. So I've got you positioned here at the camera so that the long shotgun mic is pointed in that direction. Ooh. I got chills going up my spine.
Something big, yet stealthy, is out there. And it's no bear, it's no moose, and there's more than one. At least 3 creatures make noises of swishing bushes and tree branches. Little knocks and pops. Deep thuds in the ground that you can feel even though you can't quite hear them. Why is there no better footage of these supposed creatures? I'm a filmmaker. I have the gear, skill set, and experience to capture what needs to be captured. But like survival itself, you have to be out here to get it. To know what it's like to hear a small sound that makes you turn or a large sound that makes you jump, yet you don't catch it on film. And leaving the camera on non-stop, pointed exactly in the right direction, is not an option. So I'll wait, look, and listen. But to what? At this point, I can't explain. But there is something out there tonight.
I can think of how many times I've heard those sounds. I've heard them before.
Perhaps not is all as it seems in the vast wilderness areas that still cover this earth. Perhaps the confirmed DNA evidence of unknown ape species found in North America, the sounds and sightings in the prevailing native lore, actually mean something after all. If there were only a few dozen or even a few hundred, and they were intelligent enough to hide, they could certainly do it out here. We're gonna head off into the woods here and investigate where we heard the 3 sounds last night. Look around, see if we can spot any prints at all. I mean, the sounds we heard were distinct. There was no wind, it wasn't creaking trees. It was definitely not a grizzly or a cougar or anything like that. No ungulate, no hoofed animals. No. What we heard was something else. We're gonna go in and see if we can find some tracks.
You kidding me? The apples are gone? Damn, we might have new prints here. And no signs of the apples. At all. They were here. Apples are gone. I'm seeing new impressions. Because that looks to me like a Bigfoot track right here.
Come here and look at this track. Heel impression. And then there's like holes. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we start back here and it ends up here.
Gosh, it sure does look like an impression,
It does, doesn't it? My foot wouldn't have made that and your foot wouldn't have made it.
And if we do the pressure test?
It's the same shape, but really slender. But look at the size of it.
It's huge.
That's not a hoof. It's not a hoof print.
No, that's bigger than anybody's footprint would be.
Checking out the tree structures, places where we've put the apples, just to see if anything's been taken, and indeed, they're gone from down at this one. This is the one right across from our base camp. The apples are gone, and prints, maybe. I know the print that I saw in the sphagnum moss was far too big for a human to make. It was definitely not an ungulate. It was not a bear, actually. The only shape that it had was the shape of a large human-like foot. You know, it had the shape of a Bigfoot. The beauty of tracking right now with this kind of sun is that the sun is hitting the ground on such a sharp angle that any tracks, any impressions, they just pop out at you. Really easy to see the shadows. Okay, this is kind of freaking me out here. I recognize that the camera won't capture the look of this track the way my own eyes do, but no animal I'm aware of could have made it, and there's no reason for the moss to grow indented in this manner. What's freaking me out about this is the track, the way it goes. It's got a definite shape like a human foot, and in the toe end of it, there's literally holes. I see the exact same track here as I saw over there. Look, slender heel.
What the hell is going on?
Long, right? Toe holes.
And look how close he was. This is close.
Yep.
He was looking right at us.
Those tracks were not there the day before. It's time to go in alone. That's how I do my best work anyway. Where I'm going defies all of my usual logic for a good place to survive and be stationed. It's a small, deep little pocket of a place, far from our base camp. The last place I'd want to be if I wanted the upper hand. But then that's the point, to make myself as vulnerable as possible, so that whatever is out there that might be interested in me feels safe enough to come in and check me out. Whatever's out there, I want contact. The way we're setting ourselves up, and I understand where Todd's coming from. It's the opposite of what I would normally do. I mean, purposely placing ourselves in the position of vulnerability. I mean, this is the kind of positioning I would not put myself in an area like this when I'm concerned with good, healthy population of grizzly bears, black bears, and of course, cougar. But every once in a while, I gotta just stop and think, man, what am I doing? What is this anyway? But you know what? I know what I heard yesterday, and I can't explain it. Not within normal explanations. You know, I think, ravens can kind of make whooping sounds. That's very true, they can. But they're also somewhat masters of mimicry, but that's not what I heard yesterday. No, I heard my whoop given back at me 3 or 4 minutes after I made it. And last night by the fire? Nah, there's no explanation for what we heard last night by the fire. I don't have one. And I spent most of my life out here. I start to think back to all the different sounds and things that I've seen and heard when I've been out on survival missions, especially what happened to me in Alaska, and also what happened to me in Northern Ontario. I know the sounds of moose, wolves, bears, birds. And these other experiences, they aren't any of those. So what are they? We're following dozens of very strict rules set out by Todd. One mistake, and these elusive creatures could disappear into the vast forests without a trace. In 1995, I spent a year living in the wilderness, and on one occasion, I listened on a calm, dark night to 2 heavy feet walking closer to my shelter. My wife at the time heard them too, We sat and listened until it came so close that we called out, just as we would to scare off a bear. It could only be described as sounding like a very heavy man walking. But we were in the middle of nowhere, with no one around for many miles. The walker stopped when we called out. It turned and just walked away. I didn't see it, but I know it wasn't a moose or a bear. So what was it? If it happens again tonight, I'll be ready.
This is the strangest version of being out here I've ever done, that's for sure. Surrounded by grizzlies, cougars, and who knows what else. Well, here I am. You know, this is absolutely by far the last place that I would normally leave myself for the night. The last place. Completely vulnerable. Right at the bottom of a bowl. Everything around me is high ground. Cougars love high ground. The whole point is that, according to Mr. Standing, so do Sasquatch. And we're giving them that. I'm giving them that. I'm giving...
You can put out trail cams, use infrared technology to spot one, even hunt them if you want. You might get lucky, but I doubt it. I'm looking for contact. If there's something out there, I'll find it.